Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Joeyfaux, a show about everything to do with Malifaux, and today we are going to start from the very beginning. So, what is Malifaux? Once upon 1787, all of the world's most powerful magical practitioners gathered together to create a vortex between a thin barrier from this world to another world, a deserted land. When they opened the rift, they created a breach, and this caused many, many lives to be lost amongst the magical casters. What they found on the other side was a deserted city, much like the ones that they had here, but with strange symbols, so they sent teams of researchers to figure out what was going on. And there was no signs of war, no signs of devastating loss, just as if the people had simply disappeared. But what they found out was, this town was called Malifaux. As time went on and they discovered more and more about the inner workings of Malifaux, they discovered stones that would greatly enhance their magical powers. As time went on, they became useless and depleted, but they realised that their power would be replenished in the presence of a dying person, and they became to be known as soul stones. Soul stones were greatly harvested, and more people and families were brought over to the town of Malifaux as workers for the practitioners. As time went on, with an ever-increasing population, people pushed more into the outer skirts in and around Malifaux and discovered strange and dark creatures, one of which believing itself to be the first inhabitants, called the Neverborn. The Neverborn made themselves known to be no friend of man, and over time began to close the vortex, thus killing everything. And once it was reopened many years later, it was again a barren land. So that is the basic fluff of Malifaux. There is a lot of great in-depth information in the books, and it's a good read. The themes of it are Gothic, steampunk, Victorian, Wild West and horror, and it's all very grimy, but in the best way possible. So there are a few different factions in Malifaux, and we'll firstly talk about the Guild, and they are the self-proclaimed rulers, monopolising all of the soulstone trade, and they are mafia-esque in their approach to things, and their ruler is called the Governor. So one part of the guild is the witch hunters, and they use their magic to hunt down other magical users because they want all the magical power. You've got the death marshals, which also hunt the resurrectionists because of some moral issue to do with bringing people back from the dead, and that's wrong. And finally Lucius, who runs a group of thugs that basically carry out the governor's will. Next we've got the resurrectionists, that I can best describe as doctors, Irish people, and inappropriately dressed ladies. The basics of the resurrectionists is that they resurrect themselves, but they're pretty much just zombie-like mindless creatures. There are only a few that maintain their actual personality. In a strange twist of fate, two of the guild's most highest employees are working in secret for the resurrectionists. We have the Neverborn, which, as I said, believe themselves to be the first and rightful inhabitants of Malifaux, and they're very Chucky-esque. Next we've got Alchemists, who are terrorists in the guild's eyes, but anti-heroes to themselves. They have several businesses acting as fronts for soulstone trafficking to Earth, and they pretty much help and shelter any magical users that the guild is trying to hunt down. And then lastly we've got outcasts, who are pretty much everyone else, and mostly mercenaries that can be hired. Kind of a jack of all trades. There's lots of different classes amongst this group. So the game basics, you can pretty much play a full game with between 8 and 12 models typically. You use soul stones to replenish lost cards or damage, and you have cards instead of dice that are picked at random for the strength of spells or attacks, and it's point action based, it's action reaction, it's not your turn and my turn. So the game itself is very cheap to play. You can use a normal set of playing cards instead of the Malifaux cards if you want to. The rulebook is free to download, and the models become full set, ready to play with, between £20 and £30, and the website can help you build a list and things that you find preferable, and it's really cheap to just get started with straight away. So if that's something that you were looking into, that you wanted something quick and affordable and still lasts, you get a good long game out of it, Malifaux is the way to go. With my first game, I was going to talk about that as well. I had great fun. I lost horrendously. Richard Richard's my Malifaux mentor. Thanks for helping me today. And yeah, it was funny. It was I just lost a lot, but it's a really good setup, and there's so many different versions of the game that it's very difficult to have an army or a faction created to win all games. It's luck with the cards. You pick one out, whatever that is, that's the game that you play. You can do set games if you want to, but there's lots of different types, and I'll be going over all of those in further videos. But I hope you liked my first introduction video of Joeyfaux, and if there's anything that you specifically want me to talk about, let me know down below. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.